Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hi, my name is Jeroen Braak. I'm Flexera Security Sales Specialist. And together with Dylan, maybe Dylan, you can introduce yourself.
Sure thing, yeah. Dylan Hudak. I'm also with Flexera. I'm a senior solution engineer with our security product line.
All right. Yeah, so today we will talk again about the latest vulnerability insights. This time we take a little bit of data from the August vulnerability report and some looking forward to the September data. But before we do that, I think it's good maybe to just go over the agenda real quick. So the insights of August and September will be a nice point for discussion. Of course, the ongoing challenges with the NVD, but also dependent-free vulnerability feeds that rely on that type of data. We'll have a nice discussion, hopefully, with each other. Benefits of using multiple data sources and building your own prioritization model, and the do's and the don'ts, maybe the positive side and the negative sides of it. And then we'll talk, hopefully, if we have some time left, what regulations do you have to comply on, and how does that align with your vulnerability management processes? So, for example, a hot thing right now is the NIS2, which is something that's in Europe, but there's a lot of organizations using it and need to comply with it. And then if we have time, we'll go into the questions and discussions piece. So first, we'll do a couple of questions just to see, who we have in the audience, and just start from there. So a couple of questions like, what team are you on? And this is, I think it's something that you can click on.
It sure is. Even I can click on it. I'm going to weigh in on this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm going to call it.
Security.
Was it just timeout?
All right.
There we go. Oh, it's starting to rip. What do I hit? Enter?
All right. If you can select one of them who are applicable to you.
Looks like you can do one or more. I know a lot of people wear many hats. It really depends on the size of the organization, right?
Yeah.
Usually smaller,
Exactly.
mid-sized people are kind of asked to, adopt multiple
But you can
roles.
select more.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the people who do multiple roles can reflect that, especially if we have it there. But it's definitely something I see very often, right? People wearing multiple.
So for those who are joining a little bit late, we are just doing 2 or 3 questions just to see who is in the audience so that we can please know a little bit, which direction we can go with our discussions and making sure that everyone is happy. All right, I'll go to the next question. I'm not sure if you can go back or see it, but another question would be, who is responsible for remediating the software vulnerabilities? Is that your security team? Is the IT operations another team? Maybe a combination of all two? If you can cast your votes, that would be very nice.
We almost could have made an open blank there too on one, because it's ran into some very interesting decentralization lately of who owns that process. And I've found that decentralization, and we'll get to it obviously as well, but it's very interesting. Moving to owner, the product owner, a portfolio owner, and then they have to be in charge of stuff. But it's very interesting. And I'm not sure where that discipline even came from. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see the same thing in conversations that I have with my customers, is that sometimes it's very obvious there is an IT operations who's taking care of the patching. But sometimes I'm talking to really large organizations, and it's just part of the security team. It's just the patching team, patching security vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
So there's a patching for normal functional application packaging team, and there is a security patching team. All right, let's go to the next question. So what factors do you use to prioritize for your remediation efforts? Of course, this is a question for those who are responsible for security, for remediating vulnerabilities, but what is, the reason why you do patching? And what factors do you use for that?
I feel like I definitely see the A through D on this one. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah, all of
really
the above.
Yeah, how like sometimes patching will just come down to the availability of a maintenance cycle and how much time you have within it. And you're like, well, I think we could do this, right? Instead of like, also very interesting, right? You got to make hay while the sun shines.
Absolutely. Again, and compliance is becoming more and more important because it's in most of the rules and regulations that are out there internationally or from an industry perspective. Mm-hmm. They tell you what to do, that you have to have a patch catalog, you have to have a process in place to identify the vulnerabilities. So yeah, definitely. But most of all, if your business operations are affected by not doing it, that's a big no-no. All right, let's go to the next question. For those who are joining us, we're doing just a few questions. I think this one is the last one. It's a huge page, I see. But any other factors do you use to prioritize remediation efforts? I think it looks almost like the same, but what do you use for prioritizing vulnerabilities? So obviously, I think most people will use CVSS score, I guess, right, Dylan?
It seems to be kind of the main benchmark, right? With the new, V4, it's a little bit more accurate now, right? It's taking into account more information to help balance that score, and also bring in a little more like temporal information, which I really appreciate. But yeah, definitely. I'd say that would be the prime thing I would see, but I would imagine anything that someone, if they hear the word or sniff that a 0-day might be potentially, I think that's definitely going to ruffle feathers and get people to get up and take notice and try and figure out how they can get after that as quickly as possible, right? Which
exactly.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, because CVSS score, as we have talked about it for many times in previous webinars, but, CVSS score is just a theoretical indicator.
Yep.
But if you combine that with threat intelligence, for example, you really have something that you can work on, and that combining with some of the other numbers like A2F, those are all super important. Of course, social media or your CEO telling you to prioritize this could be a good reason.
And I've heard that happen like way too often, like some CEO is like doom scrolling on his or her bathroom, toilet in the morning, and then they saw like a Forbes article about some, nothing burger of a vulnerability that they decided to write up to get their clicks in for the day, and they're like, oh my God. This needs to get done, and you're like, but this isn't a problem. Like, I have actual problems to deal with, and they're like, no. And it's fun how like social media or different articles that were definitely like clickbaity in their origin will drive someone's perception through FUD, right? Gotta love how FUD is built into so many things, that fear, uncertainty. Well, Forbes wrote about it. Like, well, they wrote about it because they know people will click on it and they get ad revenue.
All right, let's go and look at the results. So, most people are in actually IT asset management, or no, actually, sorry, it's other. So, anything other than what's listed here, more than half.
Nice split in security and governance. Hey, all like I said earlier, I don't know if we were on or not, but all cybersecurity processes literally begin with a strong ITAM discipline. And if you don't have that, how the heck are you getting anything done? Right? What is this over here?
Protect what you don't have. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
All right, next one. So who's responsible? Well, hey, that's a 50-50 tire on security and IT operations. Interesting. Next one. Well, we see here that severity of vulnerabilities has the highest factor for prioritizing and compliance. It's a nice second place. Yeah, I see that. That's a trend that we see as well.
I think the next time we do one of these, we should see if the instead of just clicking on something, we could stack rank them. You know, you just move them into like an order, and then it would show people stack ranking.
Oh yeah.
That'd be really fun too. But that's okay. This data is really fun, and I think it fits right. You know, a lot of people do have to labor under compliance. That makes sense. Impact on business operations are generally dictated by the compliance, because the compliance is usually on the like most important items in your environment. You know, like a PCI server running credit card transactions, or you know, whatever your database is, part of your order processing system and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Like and just like you said,
right. And then the final one, CBSS. Yeah, we thought that. We assumed that already.
What's even if it's not necessarily, and we're going to get into this, even if the NVD isn't necessarily like the greatest source of truth, and we've had this discussion before, it is still the source of record, and it is the source of record that is like undisputed in its, in its place or position for what people do. It's very centric to, the entire apparatus of like cybersecurity management, vulnerability management, et cetera, is that because it's free, right? And security has always been a red ink affair, especially in the United States. And that's another really fun thing. Like if we have, and maybe if we get to Q&A, right? If we have people in EMEA that want to speak to the cultural difference, I'll lambast the North Americans as a North American for a while, but I really have witnessed a difference in the culture around how security is implemented and how security is viewed. And there's a radical difference between like Europe and North America and even Canada, right? Between US and Canada, right? The differences in hypercapitalism. It's really super interesting, right? So this is interesting data, right? And then of course, I love that the 20%, they're like the social media, you saw something tick by, and I'm not gonna slam on all social media. There are some great channels out there, I'm sure, of different people like actually surfacing quality content, and that's going to drive you in the right direction. The news, probably not so much. And things coming down from people who don't really understand what that is and context of what's going on, like the CEO, for example. Those ones are always fun as well. Because you can't say no to the person. You're wrong, sir, madam. That's not a employment sustaining choice, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, so let's park this. Great information. So thank you everyone for filling those out. Hopefully for next time we will find some other ways to get some interaction. So let's get started with the monthly vulnerability report. So in August, we saw that the number of vulnerabilities went down from another 1,000 plus number in July. So the average per month currently is 1,000 versus 730 last year. So we still see a huge increase in vulnerabilities. Since the data is all talking about advisories, which are a roll-up of CVEs, right, vulnerabilities, but they're product focused. That means that, of course, obviously there are less advisories than that there are CVEs being registered. But still, 14 advisories that we published were without a CVE assigned. And that's pretty interesting because that is a number that is growing, because what we do is also research. So sometimes there are vulnerabilities that, are not in the CVE listing at that moment. So that is a big plus for our research team, and wonderful news. But again, Linux, Red Hat, SUSE, Ubuntu are the ones creating the most, vulnerabilities per month.
Is it still
also the most rejection?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
right?
Same
just
issue every time.
Nonsense. Yeah, I just don't understand why
bombarding the community with these nonsense.
Because all that's going to do is make people like just start ignoring the data. Because if it's like literally all garbage, and it's not anything anyone's really going to do, or they're like, really, you just for like a regular, you know, like a minor change that wasn't actually security related, they're creating CVEs for them. Eventually you're going to miss things because you're just getting bombarded with garbage that is completely worthless of your time. I'm still very much am concerned, just like our head researcher, about, you know, the level of noise that they're producing and how that noise is distracting for professionals, because it's going to cover, you know, like things that you need to do, right? It'll like, you know, wash over that, and you'll get like worn out from dealing with the garbage, and you might not find the stuff you actually have to do. So it's very, very, very much concerned about this what the Linux project's been doing with, you know, just unloading hundreds of meaningless CVEs a month.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, the good news is that, you know, our research team is reviewing them, it's testing them, verifying them if they are really, you know, vulnerabilities that you should consider as a real vulnerability. So what we do is called rejection advisories, which is, you know, telling our customers, our users to, you know, that you can safely, not completely ignore it, but, you know, we have a good reason for it to ignore it, and at least put it at the lowest priority level.
Exactly.
So if you look at the, you know, the numbers, so from a date. So if you look at, as you can see here, this is clearly the Patch Tuesday focus that many vendors are getting into that same window of opportunity, which is terrible news for researchers like our Secunia research team, because everything comes in at once. So we started with Microsoft, and then Adobe, and then Apple, and, you know, all these vendors are trying to roll over each other to, you know, be the first to, you know, dump all the vulnerabilities that they have found in the last month. They put them all in this one particular day in this particular month. And that is just, yeah, unnecessary pressure, I would say. Why not just release all those vulnerabilities as they come? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the fire hose, right? And then trying to like recover, and you have to digest, like, it looks like within a week, right? It's the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, you know, 19th. Those are just big rocks, right? That's what, 400 some like items right there or whatever, right? 166, 37, whatever. It's a fair, like, pretty big number. How are you going to possibly get through that? You know, like within 2 weeks or whatever you want to try and set for like a meaningful turnaround, that MTTR, right? The mean time to remediation, from understanding what vulnerabilities are present, whether or not they're in your environment, prioritizing your effort to address that content, and then actually doing it with proper testing, right? You can't just roll out patches, CrowdStrike, to everybody and think that it's going to be okay if they don't go through a proper testing procedure, you know, like, and the same thing for organizations. If you're just rocketing patches automatically into your environment without testing, which obviously happened and people think is okay, it's not, right? And so like, look at that amount of work you're going to get in 1 week. You got to crush through that basically in a week, so that you can spend a week testing your patches that you actually have to deploy into your environment, so that you can actually do your rollout within like the 30 days as prescribed by most regulatory bodies, right? That's a lot.
Absolutely.
And I think you're right.
You know, actually, yeah. But the funny part is, now I'm thinking about it, these are just advisories. That means these are roll-ups of multiple CVEs in most cases.
Yeah.
So if there are organizations just focusing on the CVEs, the numbers are much bigger per day.
That's also true. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, well, I have all that data. So if you are interested, you know, there's so much data that we can provide in our solutions, like Software Vulnerability Research or SVM, Software Vulnerability Manager. It's just incredible, so many data points. But again, you know, it doesn't matter if you have a lot of data points and you know, use as much as you, and cool algorithms and whatever. But if you don't know what you have, you cannot protect it. So then all that data doesn't go anywhere. Anyway, next slide. So this shows you a little bit the vendors that are causing the most headaches for these people per month. So this is again in August, Linux, SUSE, Red Hat, Ubuntu. More than half of them are theirs, but yeah, you see also some other players in the market who are delivering some huge numbers of vulnerabilities each month. We talked about the rejections, the rejected advisory. So, a little bit of background information. So the common ones are the non-reachability or no reachability. So, it cannot even be exploited because you cannot be, the vulnerability cannot be reached by an attacker, or there's no gain.
Outside, right? By an outside attacker. That's the one thing, and actually, it's a fun discussion. A lot of the items that we reject are still potentially suspect to the bad inside actor, the disgruntled employee who's being a jerk or whatever. But yeah, as far as like defending yourself from the external threat, exactly. These, like what, you just let someone walk into your production floor, go up to some server that you conveniently logged into with your super admin credentials, and then you wandered off to like whatever for 15 to 20 minutes that it's going to take that bad actor to like what, load up a thumb drive that you apparently didn't sanitize off of the off of the connection, so they're just slapping a thumb drive in there and doing whatever they want. It's just ludicrous.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's so many failures.
And that is, yeah, and exactly. That is also the reason, because of the if you ignore best practices, for example.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So having thumb drive or USB access on your device, that's old, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But anyway, so a little bit of an overview. Linux, of course, highest, the one with 104. If you look at it from a product perspective, you see also the Linux versions being the top 3, but 104 out of, what was it again, 900 or so?
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's 10-15% of all the vulnerabilities are not really vulnerabilities, at least those from Linux. And there are more of those. So it's very important to focus on the right vulnerabilities, because I think about 10% or so will ever be exploited. Is that the average number?
It's even smaller than that, right? It's like 3% of known vulnerability. Wow. So it's, again, it's that game of the prioritization and
focusing on the right.
You have to put yourself in the shoes of the attacker and understand that it's a business for them. And then it's like fairly easy, at least for me, to then, turn that around into my prioritization matrix, right? That this is the juicy stuff. This is what they're going to make money off of. So this is where I need to spend more time. They're not going to go over here. There's nothing over here that's going to help anyone do anything. Those kind of different assessments, right, of your estate. Anyhow, it's a business, right? They get paid. They have 401ks and vacation time in some of these groups. So it's definitely a business.
All right. Well, we'll park the vulnerability insights reports for now. But if you have more, if you want to see more, I am posting through my LinkedIn profile a lot of interesting posts or articles that I write, or of course the monthly newsletter. So if there's anything you want to know, or you think, hey, you're missing out on something, please let me know as well through this source. That would be great. Thank you. So let's go to the elephant in the room now. But the NVD, actually, I was checking the NVD data yesterday, and I'm seeing a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. There is some activity going on.
Mm-hmm. They seem
Although
to be
the quality is still far away from where it was, if it was ever there. But at least there is some action going on the analyzing vulnerabilities. So, and the number of vulnerabilities are increasing. We see that in our Skuni advisories as well. It's rising. So obviously the NVD has some challenges. they since February they have been lacking about 18,000 vulnerabilities to analyze them properly. But as I said before, there are some changes. They hired an external company to do some activities on that. So hopefully that will help them to do something better in the future. But
And
currently
that
they're
company is
still
actually going to be at an event that you're going to, right, in Europe?
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
not sure who else is going from the audience, but definitely I'm going to the phone forecast from the first org. It's actually in my hometown, Utrecht. So if you're interested, October 3rd and 4th, there's this vulnerability forecasting event to talk about vulnerabilities. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the NVD will be one of the topics at that event. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, and you'll get to hear from that group, which I think will be interesting. I'm keen to hear your take, and maybe we'll discuss that, the next month. I just think it'll be interesting. So I've never heard of them before. It's like, where'd they come from? What do they do? Very interesting. But we'll keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll definitely check them out. So yeah, just an overview of the NVD data. I know there's nothing to do with us because we are not relying on that data. We do our own research. But it's interesting to see, how, because there's so many vendors out there that are relying on this data, and that will affect us ultimately as well, because they will come to us or they will ask us, hey, how can you compare? But as you can see in September, there was a huge bump going up from, I believe, 750, about 50-50. It's now 1/3, 2/3 in the analyzed and awaiting analysis. So yeah, I was positively surprised that in 2 days they covered more than 300 vulnerabilities. Pretty good. So, and that looks better than from this perspective. If you look at the dark blue, that's awaiting analysis, of course. Don't look at March, April, maybe, because that's terrible. But
it's definitely still
the number. Right? That backlog will not change. Although there is like minors, it's like 10 per week in the backlog will be fixed. But their focus, of course, is on the current ones. And then ultimately, since, yesterday, we have 17,600. So it went down 250, I believe, 200, 300. So that's good news.
That is good.
All right, but again, if you have 17,500 vulnerabilities still unanalyzed, it's clear that they're not up to that task right now. So it's really important that you choose a data source that you can trust. But the problem is there are so many free data sources out there that are relying on that same data source, the NVD. But they just create nicer, colorful, maybe reports and stuff, and they break down the CVSS3 vectors, and they create a nice story out of it. But ultimately, it's still the same data. And if it's not verified, if it's not analyzed, it's something you cannot trust. But that's why we always try to, deliver the message to our customers, like, it's great to have multiple sources and build your prioritization model, but just don't gamble on just one, and particularly not one that is free.
Sure. Well, the gamble, up until yesterday, we were facing a potential federal government shutdown, right, in the United States that would have hit in 4 days, right? And that would immediately shut NIST off, and the NVD would immediately be unfunded, and they would all be furloughed. And then we would add to that pile, right? And so with the, we'll call it the instability of the current, United States federal government, you're also gambling by if you're only using that one feed. If that feed is at the whim of people who are behaving like 5-year-olds and can't get anything done, and then you lose access to the only thing that you have, then how will you proceed? It will be a very difficult position. But it wouldn't really be a problem, again, if you had data in depth, right? If you had multiple sources of information coming in that you merge together, internally in your solution, what of choice, whatever that might look like. I know that you're working with a customer right now who's kind of tailoring their own prioritization by putting together a copious amount of data to get to the truth, right? And I think that's really you have to have those multiple streams coming in so that if one stream is ineffective for a short period, you aren't hindered in your efforts to continue with those operational changes, right? You're not just waiting or casting dice hoping for something to work when you have no idea what the problem really is and that kind of stuff. So I can never state enough about just defense in depth, right? And that's a variety of different ways, but multiple data streams is part of that defense in depth, right? Yeah, which exactly you have here.
Yeah, exactly. So some of my private projects, because I like data so much, but one of my private projects is to just have all these data sources in one view, and then just see what they cover, and if there are any differences between those, because there is, and then trying to figure out which one is then more reliable than the other. So yeah, but again, combining asset information with vulnerability and threat intel will definitely enhance it. That's one of the benefits of having multiple data sources. But also, based on context, right? What is the business impact? What's the sensitivity of the devices that you're getting the reports on, et cetera? So that will help you to focus your resources, your people, the people that need to remediate it, to focus on the right things at the right time. So the most critical assets. And ultimately to improve your mean time to remediation, or shrinking the risk window, as we call it. So because it's taking too much time, disclosure to remediation, can, it should not be months.
183 days.
183 days, wow.
It was 183 days from vulnerability disclosure to remediation. And now the mean time to exploit has gone from 7 days to 1 day.
Wow.
So that's 182 days that you're flapping in the breeze, on average, right? And again, it's that prioritization of having all that data and being able to, see what's the thing that's on fire that needs to be put out today, and the thing that could be on fire tomorrow, right? And being able to see that, put the appropriate weights into your algorithm, right, that you're using to create that model. Yeah, it's definitely
So
a problem.
So that means, and that goes back to the beginning of if you want to shrink that risk window, you need to know what you have, and if you focus too much on the research side, you will lose focus, because the focus should be reducing that mean time to remediation, or that risk window. Because if you want to go back from 7 days to 1 day, because that was or whatever, 2 months maybe, some organizations take 2 months for fixing a vulnerability. That's there for an average medium vulnerability. It's just not the way it should be.
Which are
one of the causes
targeted too, right? Those medium vulnerabilities eventually come back around to be the ones that actually bite people. The 0 days obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and and that's just a challenge. So yeah, definitely, it's focusing on the right, let's say 10%, will help you to be in control, I would say. But how do you know? That's where we try to help you, obviously. So yeah, the final topic was about what regulations do you have to comply to, and how does that align with your vulnerability management process? So as we've seen in the questionnaire, compliance or rules and regulations was one of the top 3 or so of reasons why remediation of patching was priority. So let's go in there. So there are a lot of compliance rules and regulations. GDPR, ISO, NIS2, DORA, Cyber Essentials. So DORA, actually NIS2 is a European focused one. DORA is European, focused on the financial institutions. Cyber Essentials is a UK government compliance or certification program, more or less. Essentials 8 looks a little bit like the Cyber Essentials, but Essentials 8 is for the Australian organization. Of course, then you have the NIST framework, the PCI DES for payment systems, CMMC. I don't know CMCC. Who is? Or sorry, CMMC. That's a US rule regulation. I haven't heard about it.
I'm familiar, but I can.
I just wrote them down, but I forgot. I read it, but I forgot. But HIPAA is there as well. So
yep, HIPAA and they're like NYDFS Part 500 is another great one that recently created a lot of impact in the New York financial system and banking system. They're very much being held to a standard now, which is interesting, which is very similar to ISO 27001. So it's got a good baseline to it, but I like to see that kind of thing. Usually healthcare and financial systems have the most slow to react and change processes. They keep legacy stuff around the longest. They're the ones usually driving the mean time to patch being 183 days, that kind of stuff. Yeah, which isn't really all that great.
Yeah, and it's costs a lot of money, especially if you look at the NIS2 and the DORA. They have up to 10 million in fines if you are not complying with those rules or regulations. And some of them, in combination with the importance of software vulnerability management, if you look at the NIS2, there's some regulatory compliance, like you're able to identify and mitigate vulnerabilities. The cool thing is we can automatically do that for you. We have a vulnerability identification using scan agent or agentless approach to check diverse environments, and checking if vulnerabilities are there, if there's any risk because of there's any threat intelligence information. So that will help you definitely also on the risk reduction, because we do real-time prioritization, real-time scanning of those devices, so we can be really fast in reducing the risk. And of course, that will all then dribble down to the operational continuity. Patch management is one of them, to make sure that there's no disruptions, stability of the devices, enhanced security posture, and ultimately the incident response readiness. We have cool APIs that can integrate with tools that do that incident reporting or incident response triggers. So that's pretty interesting as well. Actually, I use the API for most of my reports, actually, and integrate them. Anything to add on that?
No, I mean, it all adds up to me, and that's basically the kind of recipe for a majority of compliance metrics. They're all fairly similar in what they're trying to do, and just really get best practices to rise to the top and be, exactly what people do every day. Repeatable, sustainable processes, right? So you're gonna have determined outcomes from that. It's good. It's definitely needed. And carrots and sticks have to occur if companies, just don't want to do anything about that. So I like to see these. No.
Yeah. So, and how does NIS2 impact your application security program? So these are these articles that are referencing this security piece. So just for you, nice to read. I'm not going to go over them one by one, but it's just interesting to see that not only NIS2, but also DORA for the financial institutions is going to be, so NIS2 will start on October 17th. So after that, you need to be compliant. But for DORA, you still have a couple of more months till January to comply with those rules as well. But they're practically the same, I would say, on the vulnerability side of things.
Sure, makes sense.
So yeah, so I'm not sure if I can share my screen. I just wanted to just show a couple of
I think you can.
things. I can, cool. So let me see if I can click on that. And then...
Share the ridiculous spreadsheet. Is that what you're going to bring up?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh, I think you should share that with people.
Yeah.
Put that on your LinkedIn.
I will. Maybe I will. Yeah, it's actually not a bad
I
idea.
think people would like it. It's like every single metric, all kind of like stack ranked, and you can sort through. And I really like what you did there. It's super fun.
All right. Maybe I'll share some. Okay, you're challenging me to create a post. Okay, nice article on it. So I will.
I'll even share it. Followers. All fun.
Okay, nice. Now, I just wanted to show, our software vulnerability research solution, the source of most of the data that we deliver. So in this case, it's it's a real-time database that gives you all these vulnerabilities.
You might not be able to share your screen then, because I can't see it, buddy.
Oh, you cannot see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can put a screenshot up later or something. But it's true. It has all the content. I know exactly what you're talking about because I SE for it.
Okay.
That's what we're learning.
Let's see if I can try again.
Sure.
So it should be shared now if you look at the audience. Otherwise, I will probably get some people who will ask me the question, hey, can you share? But so perhaps you don't see it, maybe, Dylan, but so this is the database that we have. Most of the data, contains the advisories with associated CVE references, but also all the different variables that are important to prioritize. For example, criticality rating, how critical is it? The 0-day, of course, highest prioritization score, I would say. But also, what's the impact or the consequence? What happens if a hacker get access to that vulnerability? And then, of course, the attack vector is important. If there's a solution, if there's a vendor patch that will help you to fix it immediately. If there's no fix or there's a workaround, then you need to do some little bit more research maybe. The Secunia CVSS score, we also support CVSS 4. So if you're interested, we can get you a trial license for that. Of course, CVE references, if there's any threat intelligence to it. So let me just get one with some threat intelligence maybe. Okay. Like this Red Hat one. Interesting. So if there's a threat associated with a CVE, we will tell you by the red dot. For example, here, you can see that there is an OST, an offensive security tool, being associated with it, and there was recently linked to malware. So yeah, you can see all that type of information, and all this information is just retrievable over or via API. IPA.
You thirsty?
Drinking beers.
Yeah, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, you're almost done. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. No, so so a lot of cool information, of course. If you are more interested in CVEs, we have all the CVEs as well that are coming in. Of course, in this user interface, you will only see the CVEs that have an associated advisory. So if there's an advisory related to it, you will see that here. Of course, with the product, with all the detailed information, there's always a solution available to you. But if you go into the API, I'm saying it right, if you go into the API, you can also see any CVE that has been published by cve.org. And then you can see if there was any published information or shared information there. Cool analytics as well that you can use. Like, you can see the trends, you can see the advisories by level of criticality. You can do that based on watch lists. There's some other cool things like workflows where you can create everything automated. So you can automate whenever a vulnerability or an advisory has been created. that is associated with a watch list of products that you watch out for, you will get a notification, or better even, it can notify the right people to take the right actions at the right time. So that's all about prioritization as well. Yeah, that was actually what I wanted to share with you from a tooling perspective. Of course, we have some other solutions as well, like Software Vulnerability Manager. We have ITV, or Technology Intelligence Platform, but that's maybe something for a different time. But they're all using the same data source that we have. So
we'll be having another.
For showing.
I think I'll be with a different Flexera, but we'll be talking about some of the other Flexera solutions.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yep, tune in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and that's where you're going to be this coming October, couple weeks.
Yes, this is the first event where we will talk about everything around software vulnerabilities, measurements, exploitation information, etc. So very interesting. It's my first time to talk to these people in this round, and I'm really looking forward to it because I like what they do. I think not everything makes 100% sense, like the EPSS score, the prediction scoring system. I still try to wrap my head around it. Like, what is the use case if you already have threat intel and accurate vulnerability intelligence? So everything, like,
I was actually digging into that. I kind of like that EPSS score after I started digging into it, because it's good for like my secondary calculations. My primary calculations are going to include, active threats or like 0 days, and then, critical infrastructure and, those kind of things. But being able to look at like the remainder, then if I've addressed things with like a threat score above, let's say like 23, where, the presence of cyber exploit starts, and I've even tackled my 0 days, let's say that those have occurred. Well, now, what's the next most likely thing to be exploited until I have the next round of threat data to base, my next things on? I can use the EPSS score to review like my remaining vulnerabilities and then rank them by that potential. And then if I have the cycles, or whoever is doing it has the cycles, they can address those higher EPSS scores and just kind of the proactive management of those items so that it's just dealt with, right? Before before it goes into that threat. But definitely it's not my primary calculation when I look at what I'd want to set up for my main prioritization, but my secondary stream is definitely going to take that into account.
No, absolutely. And I'm still trying to figure out a way how I can incorporate that into, the algorithm that I use for scoring risk. Based on all the different variables that we have. So EPSS is one of them. I also recently added the SSVC decision support, which is something that comes from CISA as well. And then you have the CISA full enrichment database. So there's a lot of databases that you can use actually simply by creating a simple script, PowerShell, whatever, to pull that information and then enrich your data and then create for yourself. That's the tip I have for most people that ask me. Just create your own algorithm. It's very easy. For example, 0 day should be the highest score, right? Because that means it's actively been exploited. Before there was a CD. And then, of course, you go to criticality in combination with threat score, and add maybe what the consequence is, add maybe what the attack factor is. If it's coming from remote, could be a big no-no. But also take in account, if your environment, is do you have specific devices that don't have even internet, then that remote attack factor doesn't make any sense. So you need to throttle and figure out the best way to create a calculation that works for you. So that's one of the things that will be discussed. The week later, there is an event that I definitely want to give you a couple of seconds attention for. is the App Manage event. It's an event that actually I created or founded a long time ago. But it's really an awesome event that started a lot of years ago as the app packaging event, focused on application packaging, which was my job for a very long time, and now it's more app manage or lifecycle management event where one of the best speakers in the space, like Paula and Sami Layo, these two will be speaking for you. Tim Mengen, of course, for the MSIX technology. But there's a lot of security in there. There's a lot of application lifecycle management in there. Really something really nice in the same city as where the first event will be. So if you want to stay a whole week in the Netherlands, I'm happy to take you for dinner. Oh, not everyone, but if you're there, you can always ping me and let's hang out. Anyway, there's another event that we will be at. It's the Gartner IT Symposium. So if you're there, tell me hi. Let's have a coffee, and I can show you some more of my cool data that I have. Yeah, and that's it. So our website with all the vulnerability type of information is on flexera.com/svm. I talked about my LinkedIn, and this is our blog. So all the vulnerability insight reports can also be retrieved through our community. So hopefully that will help. Dylan, any closing words, or do we have any questions? I think it's a little bit getting close to the...
Yeah, I didn't see any. I don't see any questions.
I don't see any questions. That's good.
We're just far too verbose. We're answering everything as we create it. It's a sign of a good presenter. Yeah, I don't really have anything. I think it's there's just so much interesting stuff going on. I could talk for days about all the fun, interesting new exploits that people are coming up with, and it's just all fascinating, right? If anyone has time, look into the ChatGPT malware event that just occurred. It's fascinating and novel. I really appreciate that someone went to the links to cause that kind of a problem. It's pretty neat, and now we know, which is even better.
So I cannot use ChatGPT anymore?
Oh no, I think they fixed it. But there was like an embedded malware like at the head end. I only heard part of it before I switched over to this. I was ripping one of my favorite daily podcasts, and they were talking about it.
All right. Well, if there are no questions, let me see. I don't see any questions.
Feel free to put questions on Jeroen's LinkedIn. He can answer you directly.
Yeah, or yeah.
Yeah,
but,
or
you know where to find us. We have a really good website where there's a contact button in there as well, and they will probably go directly to me. If you're in the EMEA or APAC region, if you are in the Americas, then most likely you will talk to one of my colleagues, like Dylan or Dan Hutchison. So I think we're good. I would like to thank everyone for their attention. And let's see each other either at an event or in our next webinar. Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everyone. Take care.